If there's one thing I've made clear on this channel is that I have no idea what my collecting focus is. I realise I'm saying that as I have a playlist on the channel called Collecting Goals. I'm nothing if not a massive hypocrite. So when I say I don't really do Masterpiece, but then there's a movie Masterpiece Starscream right behind me, you know that I'm not really all that focused. There's also a Rodimus Masterpiece figure over there too. I don't aim to collect Masterpiece figures, it's a bit too much of a buy-in for me these days. I sway more towards mainline stuff. That said, when the first Masterpiece figure came out in 2003, good lord 2003, it felt like I had to get it. I've said before that I wanted more complex transformations and accurate modes back then, and Masterpiece Optimus Prime really was a game changer for that sort of thing for I think a lot of collectors. I'm going to put this guy down because he's a tad heavy. It felt special and it felt like the future of Transformers. I'm not saying we didn't have figures back then that pulled off the triple threat of great figure, great alt mode and great transformation, but Masterpiece Optimus Prime felt like a step up on a level that we hadn't had before. If you weren't into Transformers back then, you may not get how much of a big deal he was at the time. In the following years I got older and more boring and I got into alternators, which, don't get me wrong, they are rad, but they aren't fun. They are a little bit of fun. But I did find the mainline figures weren't really appealing to me at the time, and it was so long between masterpieces that I just kind of dropped out the collecting habit. I've said this before, you don't need a recap. Anyway, many years later I got back into collecting and started consuming Generations style figures like nobody's business. And from time to time I've treated myself to a modern Masterpiece figure, you know, on a discount. A really big discount. Except for Reboost here, but he's like half the cost of most Masterpiece figures and he is so good. And after all that rambling, it's time for me to be the massive hypocrite I mentioned at the start of the video and introduce the much more expensive Masterpiece Trainbot Shouki. Shouki, who I'm starting off with in train mode for reasons that will be obvious later, is the first ever official Masterpiece Combiner figure. And why did I buy this figure that cost just £15 less than the most expensive Transformer I've ever purchased? It's because I got suckered in, didn't I? It feels too special to miss out on. Other Masterpiece figures are just more figures, but this is the first Masterpiece Combiner. And you know I like putting together lots of robots and making a big one. There's one sat right here. I made a whole video about this guy. In some ways I feel like Studio Series Devastator was like a trial run for this. Like getting this guy together ain't cheap, and he's a lot more complex than pretty much any Combiner set up to this point. Literally up until now, because My Lord Shouki and the full Combinerbot Raiden are going to be a whole other level of complexity over Devastator here. We're starting in train mode here because there is a logical order to transform in this guy. Going from train to robot to chest piece is a much more fluid process than any other way around. Each form flows into the other, you'll see. And what a train mode it is. A Type 0 Shinkansen, apparently. Honestly, I don't know trains very well. The most I know about trains I learnt from Resha Sentai Tokuja, or watching them being replaced with buses in UK train lines across the country. Even without knowing trains, I can tell this is a really good representation of one. I looked up pictures online and everything, and this is definitely a Type 0 Shinkansen. A really impressive model of one. It even fits to certain train scales that I know absolutely nothing about. In person it doesn't look so creamy coloured as some of the official promo shots suggest. More double cream than clotted, you know what I mean? There's some lovely blues on the side, which is a more prominent colour on Shouki when he's in robot mode. The roof has so many panel line details from the actual train that the panel lines required for transformation barely even register. The spots where the panels split apart on the side are much more noticeable, of course they are. But the fact it's as clean as it is a bit of a miracle to me. 40 years old and I'm still impressed when a boxy man turns into an effective oblong. The underside is nice and clean too, with only a sideways chest and a little bit of a crotch to clue you in that there's a robot inside there. There's die-cast wheels on here and they roll along quite nicely. The set comes with some train track pieces that you can fit Shouki on, and as you can see it's got gaps in there for fitting a flight stand, which I don't have because it doesn't come with one in the box. Now I don't want to sound like a whiner here, but Shouki sure was showing off in promo pics with a flight stand, and I kind of feel like one should have been in the package with it. Silly me for assuming the £170 figure I pre-ordered was going to come with a flight stand arm to go with the flight stand it comes packaged with. Regardless. Actually no, where can I get one of those arms? I've done a lot of research and I can't find one anywhere. You'd think they'd be readily available, but apparently only came with those Masterpiece Seekers, and I don't have any of those because they're like 250 quid each. Am I meant to spend 250 quid on one of those figures and then not use the flight stand that comes with the robots that turn into planes so I can use it with the train? Regardless, Shouki comes with one of those little flight stand connectors for my non-existent flight stand, which plugs into a hole in his chest here when you turn this all sideways. Other than that, you can pop open the front and insert a little seat for a tiny little man to sit in. I've only got one of those and it came with Reboost. There he is, all sat down. You can also store the combiner piece / Shouki shield in there, which is what I tend to do. You can also store his gun on the underside, but I can never get it to stay there, it just keeps popping off almost all the time. Other than that, there's a little connector at the back to connect to, well, the other trains that are coming, and that's about it for the train mode. Actually, that was quite a lot, wasn't it? It's probably the longest I've spent on an alt mode so far in one of these reviews. With all that said, shall we henshin? Transformation is actually pretty standard for what you'd expect from a train turning into a man. You're separating the back half to form the legs, separating most of the top half to get the arms, and doing a bit of a folding trick to get the backpack in place. It's more complex than that, of course, but that's the main gist of it. There's a few fiddly moments, mostly in the legs, that aren't helped by the instructions not being super clear. Like, there's a step in both legs where the instructions say to pull the legs down. You'd expect that to mean it's on a slider rail or something, but it's actually a double hinge. Honestly, I spent a few minutes on the first leg trying to figure out why it wouldn't move, and you don't want to be trying to force a piece to move on a figure made out of the sheer amount of clear plastic this guy is. That was a genuine concern for me too. We've all heard people talk about their fears of clear plastic because it doesn't have the same sort of flex that most other plastics have. I don't tend to worry too much because I've only ever had one figure with clear plastic parts that broke, and I'm pretty sure that's because I launched him down some stairs when I was a kid. This guy is covered in the stuff though, and a lot of it has metal hinge pieces running through it. It seems smartly designed though. There's not much that seems to be load bearing, and even though there's a lot of tabs that clip together in train mode, they all pop apart quite easily once you know where to give them a little twist in the transformation process. The front carriage gave me some pause the first time until I realised it actually hinges back here on this black armature and not right under the cab. Speaking of that armature, it had me a little worried when I first saw it. All that backpack hanging off this thin arm, but it turns out it's all die-cast metal and feels very securely put in place. It's pretty possible to transform the top half of the figure with the backpack resting on a surface, in case you're worried about it just dangling there as you're transforming him, which should dispel any worries of it being put under any unnecessary strain. So, how's the figure itself? Well, pretty flipping great. They've definitely gone for matching the animation model here, rather than going for some sleeker, more stylised look. I think they've done a pretty impressive job, really. When you put it next to the animation model, there's really not that much that's out of place. There's a real chunky, solid feeling to him, and he never doesn't look heroic as heck when you're getting him all posed up. That head sculpt is fantastic too. Just look at how much it radiates youthful energy. Honestly, I think it may be one of my favourites of all time. It's just perfect. The big backpack makes him a little bit tricky to hold, which isn't usually a big deal unless you're, say, trying to make a review for YouTube. Posability is entirely what you would expect. Nice clicky knees and bendy limbs. You know how it goes. It's probably easy to say what a figure can't do these days because even the main generation's figures are articulated up the wazoo. There's no ab crunch and there's no butterfly shoulders. That's fine. I feel like those are bonus articulation on high-end figures. Hands do the whole 3 fingers that are stuck together and one that isn't thing, with 1 finger free for pointing. I do find the ankles a little awkward. They're on double hinges and they take some fiddling to get both to sit at just the same height. They can rock back and forth a little bit, but they will fight you. The only real gripe I have is with the left shoulder. It's constantly coming unpegged when I do stuff. Although that said, it has kind of gotten tighter over time, which is the opposite to what I usually expect. The other one is fine though, and it doesn't seem to be any sort of issue. And it doesn't seem to be an issue when it's in the combined mode we'll be looking at later, so that's good. In robot mode you can peg Shouki's gun into his hand here, but it does have a habit of popping out of its peg, like so. I've seen the same pegging system, on a few figures, and it always seems to be a problem. I got Van's Hobby Red Buzzer recently, and the same thing happens with his hand when you close it up. Let me know if you want a review on this guy too, he's quite fun. The gun can also be folded up and stored in the back of Shouki's right leg, and it actually stays in place here. You can also store Shouki's chest plate for the combined mode on his arm, but it kind of just sort of gets in its own way and pops off kind of easily, especially if you like having these things splayed out, which I do. You can open up the backpack and fold up the shield and store it in there like you could when it's in train mode, which is what I tend to do most of the time, which actually has the effect of filling in the gap there, which is, quite neat. I have seen people arrange this backpack differently, and so it fits a little bit more flush to the back of the robot, but you can't put the shield in there when you do that. And also it kind of makes this top bit tilt backwards a little bit, and I don't like it. So that's a pretty solid figure with only a few little foibles here and there. Mostly super happy about it though. He feels really premium. And as mentioned, the shoulder peg's sticking in a bit better, and that's just aces. Well, that just leaves me with chest mode, and this is why I transformed them in the order I did. There's basically no sensible way to get to the chest mode without passing through Robot Junction first, so that's why we're saving that till last. Now excuse me while I consult the instructions so I can remember how to transform him. Yeah. Considering all it looks like you're doing is folding the arms up and spinning the legs around the back, there's actually quite a lot going on in this transformation. The backpack goes through a surprising number of motions, including a surprise nose cone shifting that ends up moving it around to Shouki's chest. This is achieved by both the waist and the chest spinning around while his midriff stays where it is. After the arms do a little twist and fold, some of the dangly bits wrap around or splay out, and then you just fold the legs back. Now, reviewing this mode seems a little bit pointless as of yet. This is just the chest of the eventual Raiden combiner, and we have to keep in mind that there's another part that's going to be attaching to this to make up the torso. I've seen some people say that this feels a little bit loose and wobbly and that stuff doesn't tab in all over the place. And while that's true, we don't really know how Kayan is going to attach to this and how secure it will be once he's on there. My best guess is that he'll slide into the groove on the crotch piece here, and then two pieces will connect into the gap under the knees here. I get a feeling this little latch on the front is going to come into play somewhere too. I feel that should go some way to giving him a bit more of a solid feel and stop the chest plate in the middle having a bit of a wobble to it. I've noticed there's no tabbing in points or clipping in areas on the clear plastic we've mentioned a few times in this video, which means it's probably not going to be load bearing in any sort of way in combined mode. Now, we don't have Raiden's head yet. That comes packaged with the left leg, obviously, but if you want to get an idea of what the head will look like on Shouki's colossal chest chunk, we can just flip out his head here and that'll give you an idea. Yeah, that looks normal and not hilarious looking at all. Shouki's arms fold up and form Raiden's shoulders, and they seem suitably clicky and solid. There's actually some decent range of motion here, despite how cluttered it looks. Plenty of room for movement, mostly. The left one seems to be impeded a little by the train tracks on the back. It's not ideal, but it doesn't take much to make a little bit of extra room, and hopefully that's taken into account when you make the full combined mode. The only other thing I've noted is that these bits that wrap around the arms and keep the shoulder area all in place feel like they should hook in on the inside, but I sure can't get them to go in there. There is a small gap and it looks like it lines up, but it doesn't seem to show in the instructions and it doesn't seem to want to peg in, so I guess it doesn't. Guess it turns out I can say some stuff about the chest mode. It does feel like I reviewed a car without taking it for a drive though, but I hear that's the sort of blagging skills that allow you to be Prime Minister these days, so maybe it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I suppose next time I'll get to review a leg. Hopefully it stands up to scrutiny. I'm not transforming him back into robot mode for the last bit. So, Masterpiece Shouki, eh? I'm pretty happy with him overall. I can see they've definitely focused on the train and robot modes first and the combined mode second. If you look at the silhouette they've shown in promo photos, the combined mode does certainly look a little bit janky. I think I'm fine with all that though. For one, these things are going to be released over the course of 2 years, so until they're all out we're going to spend more time with them in individual modes than combined mode, obviously. Well, apart from whoever comes last, which I think will be Kayan. Plus, I'm not sure I'm going to be displaying the team in combined mode. It was stressful enough for me to keep Devastator in combined mode, and all 9 of them only cost not much more than this one guy on his own. I just can't see me putting 6 figures at this sort of price together and then hoping it never falls over. That'd be a lot of figure to break, and I'd rather avoid the stress. And I guess if you're really looking for an alternative Masterpiece combiner Raiden, there is Moon Studios' Radiatron out there, which may not have the G1 accurate look down, but it really is a clean looking combined mode. Flipping huge too. It's not for me though. Also, their take on Shouki has the most chode-like train mode I have ever seen. And on that note, thanks for watching. Feel free to do a like and subscribe and stuff and a comment, and also maybe follow me on Wildwheel's hat on Twitter. I'm off to sit in silence in the corner of my room staring at the wall until Getsui turns up in a few months. Well, with a short break to TF Nation in August. See you there!